Vijay, good morning. Can you hear me? Is my voice coming out okay?
Perfect, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Vijay. So thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Voices for Tibet. I'm so grateful that you are here. The Voices of Tibet is really an effort to raise awareness of Tibet and Tibetan issues. The Tibetan Children's Education Foundation is now celebrating our 25th year, and so we are doing this. So hello to Vijay, thank you for coming. And I wanted to start off and ask Vijay, Vijay, please tell us a little bit about yourself so that, people know you. I mean, I know you. We've been friends for like 40 years, so I know everything about you, but people listening in to the Voices for Tibet might not know you. So can we start off by, introducing yourself, letting them know who this wonderful person is?
You're so sweet. Well, I don't know what to say. I've never wanted to talk about myself much, but I am a traveler. And, I've been to the colony in 75 or 76 for the first time. And I think you're going to ask me about that a little bit later. So I'll tell you about that. But I've been traveling in Asia for 51 years now. And so I've had a good chance to meet a lot of different people, a lot of Tibetans, which has always been my honor. The first time I met the Tibetans was in 69 in Nepal around the Bodha Stupa when it wasn't built up yet. They were just all coming in and the monks were selling things and the families were selling things. It was very primitive, but we liked the Tibetans so much. They were very easy for us to be with and talk to, and they were just so kind. Everything about the Tibetans fits so good with the Ingis, and His Holiness Dalai Lama has even made that more possible.
Oh, Vijay, thank you for every kind word that you say about the Tibetans. This Tibetan's heart beats with gratitude. So thank you for your kind words. Through this Voices for Tibet program, what we are trying to do is, let me put it in context. I work for the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation. And over the years, we've been so fortunate to get the support of hundreds of ordinary and some extraordinary Americans. So through this Voices for Tibet program, we are trying to capture those voices of Tibet, to share it, so that Tibetans like myself, who are a little bit despondent, thinking that it's 60 years, the episodes of 1959, the dramatic escape from Tibet, all that is sort of fading away from global consciousness. So we're losing a little bit of hope. And so Vijay, today you're just talking to me and telling these good things, beautiful things about Tibet is very encouraging. It gives me hope. And also on this program, I wanted to talk about wonderful experiences that you have. So I know you talked about visiting Clementown, but I also know that you had a fabulous pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, to Kangrem, which you're probably one of the very few Westerners who make it there. Can you tell me a little bit about that incredible experience?
It was the most incredible experience because I always wanted to go there. And it was a very hard place to get to. In fact, Tibet was hard to get into. And so it was at Clementown itself that I met the Lama. And I asked him the question. He did a divination and said I would be going. But in those days, you didn't know where you were going and when and how it would work out. You had no idea. It wasn't an organized trip at all. It was just to try your luck. And so then I decided when I was in Nepal, I got the visa for Tibet, and they did it in such a crazy way. But anyway, Roy and Diana, his wife at the time, they had their visas too. So Diane and I hitchhiked up there together, and then Roy to Lhasa, and Roy came later. But I had still wanted to go to Kham Rinpoche, and I don't even think I had the proper papers or visas, and I just set out with the Tibetan I had just met to hitchhike with me. I was going to pay him $200 to hitchhike with me to Mount Kailash because you know, there was no other way to get there. There were two routes, the southern route and the northern route. I think I was on the southern route that had such very little traffic. And I remember one little place we had to wait for a week to get a ride. So a lot of people would give up after a week and not try to go any farther. But finally I did, you know, make it. It took months. I took a month from coming and going. It really took a long time, but it was the most amazing experience in my life.
I'm so glad you had that experience, Vijay. You know, I think I also went around Mount Kailash, but I don't know whether I would technically qualify because I was really young, and so we Tibetan women wear these long chupas where they tie like a sash at the waist, and so I went around Mount Kailash in the deep pockets of my mom. So I don't know whether I would really qualify, but you know, that's such an incredible journey, and I'm so glad that you got to do it.
I'm so glad too. It changed my life. It's like the watershed year of my life, 1987, because it was by, you know, God and luck that I made it. You can't go there without that. But nowadays people can go there easier because the trips are organized. There's places to eat. And we just, you know, camped along the way and stayed at a couple monasteries. It was very, very primitive. And you didn't know from one day to the next if you would be making it any farther.
And I believe that. I believe that wonderful things do happen to good people, especially when they have a pilgrimage. So I'm happy that it was really meaningful. But Vijay, you know, one reason why you and myself, we are having this conversation, why we have been together, is because of our collective collective and common connection to the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation, this little nonprofit that, you know, has been the center of our lives for all these years. I know that this year we are celebrating our 25th anniversary. Can you believe it? It's all those many years ago. I know that you're one of the founders. I'm fascinated to hear from you. How did you, India, Roy, Bill, Diana, all the wonderful people, how did this come about? Tell me a little bit about the founding of TCF.
Well, you know, it founded a little bit earlier when I first, I think on 76 or 75 is when I first went to Clementtown, and we took the train up with my friends Kathy and Richard Bear, because Kathy's mom had sponsored a monk, I think it was Arnhem Lama, for like $8 a month. And she said, this is a wonderful place. Let's go up there and meet my friends. You'll love it. And sure enough, it was during the emergency, so it was a little harder and a little crazier to get up there then. India was always in such turmoil when the Gandhis were in control. And but we did get up there, and Kathy introduced me to Gendon Lama, who was a family friend. And Kathy and I slept in front of his altar that night. It was a big flat platform, and he covered us with the cloak that he wore coming down from Tibet. He was so kind, his family, and we just got so, I just got so enthralled with the people up there, and hardly anyone spoke English, only Mr. Sharma, if you remember. So it went from Tibet to Hindi, back, and maybe a little bit of English here and there. But I think it was that trip that we started to meet the people from the monastery, and I told the monks if they would send me stuff to America, I would try to sell it for them. But, you know, back in the day, it was very slow going. You know, if I got anything, it would take a while for me to get the money to and so it was quite primitive then. And so, but we had always been in touch. You weren't even there. You were away at school, so we didn't have anyone speaking good English. Karma, I don't know what year you got back there. Was that 82?
81.
81. So then things would change, and then India, my sister came with me, and then I think we brought a group in 82, and then we went to Ladakh, and you came with us, and so we really cemented our friendship and all our feelings on that trip, I'm sure. And then we made several trips back and forth to Clementtown with groups and other things, and you came on a lot of trips with us after that. And then it was, like you said, 25 years ago, Roy and Bill, we decided we would start a foundation. And at my ranch house up the hill, like I said, we were sitting on the floor, and we were putting the pieces together. Me, Deanna, Roy, my sister, and Bill. So that's how that all started. I think you were, I don't even know if you were in America then, Roy. I mean, Karma, or if you were still in, were you in school yet at Harvard or then?
No, Diti, I was, so this happened in 1995, you know,
okay.
So that's why it's 25 years. And I was actually in India.
Okay.
So I was not in India. That 1995, that was the year that I was in Harvard, but I wasn't in Montana. And you guys, you are in Montana and you incorporated it. And now 25 years later, some of the wonderful people like, you know, the late beloved India, she passed away last year. I know Bill and Deanna are not there. So Roy and yourself, you're really the last of the two originating founder members. And, you know, in some way, I feel privileged to be talking to you today.
No, it's amazing, isn't it? Isn't it? It's amazing.
So thank you, Vijay, for, founding this little nonprofit. I know that over the past 25 years, we have done good work. But I'm going to circle back to our theme of Voices for Tibet. I know you have been a Tibet lover for all these years that I've known you. Vijay, it's like 40 years. Can you believe it?
No,
so
I can't.
We've known each other for a long time, so I know your heart. But for, let's say, hypothetically, this is being listened to by a person who knows not much about Tibet, Tibetan culture, Tibetan issues. Can you sort of tell me, for the Voices of Tibet, why it's a good reason to support Tibetan causes? Why is it worth your time and your energy?
Well, you know, because the Tibetans are such kind and interesting people, and they have always they've been akin with us forever. You know what I mean? It was just when we first met them in the 69 and stuff, it was just like we had known them forever, and they were just part of our life, but they enriched our life. And so, and then you also would tell us your story when you were sponsored by a Swiss group or a Swiss lady to go to a proper school. And, you know, you were one that taught us how important education was. And so this is why we started this, is because with education, anything's possible. And Tibetans have always sacrificed for their children's education, always. And so I think when we opened Kitsaling, and His Holiness blessed it, was a really big change, because before those days, if you remember, all the little kids would have to go with their parents to sell sweaters, and they were taken out of school or this or that, and they didn't have a chance to really finish school. So I think that was one of the ideas we had when we started the Tibetan Children's Education Foundation, is that we would get something where they could stay at a hostel and continue their school while their parents kept on working.
Right, Vijay. And I think you sort of answered my next question with your former answer, but let's just hypothetically say that someone was watching this program and feels inspired to help the Tibetans, and you have been doing it for a long time. What would you say is the very best way to help? I mean, there are different ways to help, right? Somebody could be have a political leaning and join the international campaign for Tibet or something like that. But from your experience, if suppose there was a heart full of empathy, just wanting to do something for the Tibetans, as a veteran Tibetan helper, as someone who has helped Tibetan for all these years and have this experience, what is the one way that a person can help the Tibetan and Tibetan culture?
Well, I think the most important way is with the education. And the first thing is for them to get a hold of you if they know nothing about the Tibetan situation, because you could say, I have a child for you to sponsor. The sponsor, when we would find a perfect one to go with the people that were interested in it. And then this child, like Crystal, she had Ludu forever. And soon, you know, he was writing her. Now he's graduated from college as a nurse, and he has a job, and he's now on our board, thank goodness. So, I mean, it's been going on for years and years. So if you start and you educate a child, then they'll keep going and keep going, you know, if they're keen on education, to do something really good with their life and for their family. And then they will take over. And what we're hoping, Karma, and this is the tricky part, is when these different kids graduate from under our tutelage and have and been sponsored, they in turn will do something for the Tibetan colony and kids. So more Tibetans will join us in thinking like this, because I just sent you some pictures from the 80s, as you know, and Clementtown was so primitive back then. It was very interesting, but now it's gone quite modern, and there's some very wealthy Tibetans there. So we have to encourage them to help with our foundation. I know they have their own families, but I think we should hit them up for a little bit, because why not?
Right. Actually, I was going to follow up and, you know, ask another hypothetical question, sort of to say that if suppose this interview was being viewed by Tibetans.
Right.
And you're right, you know, many of the children that we sponsored or were on the sponsorship program, they're now graduating college, entering the mainstream job market. Some of them are nurses, some of them are air hostesses. It's really exciting.
It is exciting.
The question I was going to ask is, like, what's the message that you would send to a Tibetan, you know? So it doesn't necessarily have to be for TCF. I mean, we would love to get Tibetan support, but even otherwise, for the greater Tibetan community, what is your best hope? What is the message that you would convey to a Tibetan who is watching this program?
Well, I think I would just encourage them to carry on, because they have done so good, I feel, as a group of people coming to America, starting from scratch, doing the best they can, taking any jobs, because I know when there was a bunch of them in Missoula, we had met different ones. And I think, you know, some of them have stayed in America like forever. And I think they're doing the best they can. Just to carry on and always think of the poor people in India, the poor Tibetans, and just help any way you can.
Awesome, Vijay. Before I let you go, can I teach you 2 Tibetan words? Maybe you already know this. Can you say Tashi Dele?
Tashi Delek.
Tashi Dele, Didi, thank you so much for joining me on this program. We love having you.
You're welcome, Karma. Thank you.
Thank you again. And you know, Vijay, I think we started off something good, and hopefully we can do more programs like that and try to raise a little bit more awareness. So thank you for being on this program. Okay.
My pleasure always. Thank you, Karma. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye now.